Welcome to the Love of the Star podcast. I am not Peyton Russell, our dear producer. I'm Bobby Belts, Dallas Cowboys insider for 105 through the Fan in Dallas. Joined as always by former Super Bowl winning NFL scout Brian Broaddus. He is now the co-host of the G-Bag Nation 2 to 7 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday on 105 through the Fan in Dallas. And he is also the pre- and post-game co-host on the Dallas Cowboys radio network. Brian Broaddus, we have Dallas Cowboys football underway. How are you? How are you feeling after this 40-0 beatdown of the Giants on Sunday Night Football?
You know, I tell you what a great start to the season. You couldn't have scripted it any better for the Dallas Cowboys to go on the road against a division opponent and come out of there with a convincing victory. Offense didn't have to play a big role in what was going on with the victory. You kind of found a way. Those first 16 points you got in the game, that was probably enough to win it right there, you know. So, but it's one of those things as a front office guy or former front office guy, you get a nice victory. It's on the road, like I mentioned, a division opponent. The health of your team looks like you came out of it okay. So you have to really be happy with the way that everything kind of played out for this particular opening day.
Yeah, I mean, the only injury we seemed to see was, Chuma Doga got hit in the eye or something and had to come off the field for a few plays, but he was right back out there, and so he seems to be good to go. But, yeah, Brian, this was one that, I can't say from start to finish it was dominant because, man, the first 6 plays or so, it felt like the Giants were going to be able to run the ball down your throat all day. Yep. But, from the very start, they were having trouble throwing the ball. Even in the instances of Daniel Jones scrambling on you twice on that opening drive for some big runs, it was because he couldn't get to what he wanted to get to in the passing game. And so you, from the very start, shut down the passing game. And, man, after that missed field goal, after that block from Wanye Thomas, who also had a nice run stop on that drive, one of the few good run stops you had on that drive, Wanye Thomas gets the block. Then he gives a block on the run back for Noah Igbenogany. And from there, it was just smooth sailing. One of the most dominant defensive performances I've seen from the Cowboys in, the last several, probably 20 years. It was an absolutely dominant performance. But Brian,
short memory? Are you going to short memory Minnesota Vikings last year?
I think that on a defensive front, I thought this was more dominant.
I felt, I see what you're doing there.
I thought as a team, you played better against the Vikings because the offense was on fire that day.
They had a couple of games last year, I felt like, where they beat people up, and here I am going after you in week 1. But that's not my intent. They beat up on the Indianapolis Colts pretty well, too, was another one. So Minnesota, the Colts, couple of really kind of beat you up games for this football team. But to your point, I think you're right when you look at overall dominance, but you're right too. It didn't start that way. It really appeared that the Cowboys were going to struggle to deal with the Giants running game. Saquon Barkley, if you go through the series, he starts off with a 5-yard run. Daniel Jones with a 8-yard run. They get 15 more tacked on that on an unnecessary roughness penalty, which it kind of felt like, okay, what are the things that the Cowboys need to clean up to be an elite defense? It's those penalties where it's hands to the face, roughing, illegal contact, all those types of things that were to give opponents better field position or more field position. So you have an 8-yard run, a 15-yard penalty, then Barkley with like a 9-yard run, a 5-yard run. They get a 6-yard run. Daniel Jones with another 12-yard run. It did not appear that the Cowboys in that first initial drive by the Giants was ready to play defensive football. I was expecting. I'm going, okay, somebody could step up here, Tank. Step up, Micah. Somebody step up and make a stop here and kind of and turn things back. And they really, really didn't turn these things back. And it goes to, you're in a, you're 2nd and 10 down there, and Daniel Jones runs for 8 yards. So now it's a 3rd and 2. Okay, this is where the football god said, enough for you Dallas Cowboys. Because Thomas gets the illegal motion penalty, false start penalty. Now instead of being 3rd and 2, It's 3rd and 7. And then you get the aborted snap, which takes them back 14 more yards. And
which,
now,
by the way, that false start only happens because Micah Parsons is the player that
exactly,
he is in all likelihood.
Exactly. Micah Parsons is standing there ready to scream off the edge on a 3rd and 7. And that's why. And so you get John Michael Smits rolls the ball back. Jones has to hustle back, cover it up, 14-yard loss. Now, okay, you've avoided really disaster here. You've stopped the bleeding, and here you go. And Bones Fossil, what does he do? And I'm going to say this, Bobby. I do believe this. They saw something in Bredesen. They saw something in how he lined up at that tackle spot. He's the guard who had a lot of problems in this game. But they found something, I don't know if it was during the regular season last year with him playing tackle, or maybe something that they saw in the preseason where they were but you watched his stance, and he got his feet were extremely wide. He went forward, and that created a natural gap between his right foot and the wing to his side. And I kind of feel like that they knew that this potentially could happen, that was going to be a weak point for this field goal protection unit for the Giants. And for Wanye Thomas to jump through that gap as cleanly as he did, it's like they knew, okay, we're going to give it a go here. We're going to try something here.
Yeah.
Because he got home clean. I mean, the nice little jump, a little burst, and then a block. And then if you look on the other side, Iggy's on the other side waiting for the football. He's waiting on the ball on the other side. It's like it's kind of like they've practiced a block and then a scoop and score on the other side. There's not usually you get a rush and people trying to get there, but it's like they expected a block, and then a waiter to kind of get the ball and then go in. It was so well executed, and I guarantee you it was something that they probably saw as a weak spot of the New York Football Giants there and took great advantage of it. But I'll say this, okay, Giants down 6-0. Giants, instead of coming back and trying to run the football, what do? They throw the ball 3 straight times. 3 straight times that they try. And, they get pressure. Fowler gets pressure on 1st down. They get a pass breakup by Wanye Thomas on 2nd down, trying to go to the big tight end.
Right in the hip pocket of Darren Waller on that.
Right in the hip pocket of Darren Waller, knocks the ball down. Now we're looking at 3rd and 10, and then you get the Micah Parsons sack. That's it. Ball game.
It was over.
That was over. It was over right then and there because all of a sudden, Dallas gets the ball, they drive down, they get the field goal for 21 yards, it's 9-0. You're like, okay. But the Giants just, instead of trying to establish the run like they did in the first series, they continue to throw the football. And if you're a Giants fan, you're probably going, wait a minute, we lost the game maybe on that second drive when we, instead of trying to come back and create doubt and maybe wear the Cowboys down, throw the ball 3 straight times. I don't think teams are going to play the Cowboys like the football Giants just played them anymore. I think teams are going to be more committed to staying with the run. I really do. There's no way that you can convince me that beating the Dallas Cowboys by throwing the football is the best way to go. Until they show me that they can completely choke the run. And there were some times where they choked that run. But the Giants, the first series of the game created some doubt. Then you get the motion penalty, you get the poor snap, the blocked field goal, and then the 3 and out the following drive.
What looked different? Because you're right, they did settle down a little bit in their run fits and everything else the rest of the way, and
they were catching blocks, man.
Because that's the thing. I remember specifically on that opening series. I remember there's one time, and I can't remember if it was the guard or Schmitz, but somebody just blew Chauncey Golston out of the gap on one of those plays. There was another one where Damone Clark, it looked like, just had the completely wrong run fit.
Right.
He went in the completely wrong gap, and Barkley just, okay, I'll run right by you.
Right.
What changed? Did they get more disciplined, or did New York just stop executing?
I think New York, the first drive of the game, they were coming off the ball, and they were establishing the line of scrimmage. From the point on of the second series, Dallas was playing on the Giants side of the line of scrimmage. The entire that from after that first drive, because the Giants were coming off, there were the double teams, some of the single block stuff, linebackers were getting caught up, safety. Everybody was kind of trying to, do their jobs, but the Giants did a really good job of playing with some leverage, getting some movement, getting their pad level down, getting underneath, and getting some push. And you saw, they were getting it, like I read you the numbers, and then the Daniel Jones running mixed in. Daniel Jones running for 8 yards, for 12 yards, for 8 yards. We talked about this going into this game. What's the one thing you worry about the Giants? It's, Daniel Jones dropping back and running for 8 yards, running for 12 yards, running for 15 yards. That's what worried me going into this game. And he did that in the first series. But the Giants did a really good job as a unit getting off the ball and making the Dallas Cowboys have to play on their heels a little bit. But then that completely flipped. It completely flipped after that 3 and out. Dallas then became an aggressive team, and they were the ones winning the line of scrimmage.
It's really interesting because I think everybody knows that the big stars here coming out of this game is just the defensive line and what they were doing. Specifically, Micah Parsons, who when you look at his stat line and it says 1 sack and 2 quarterback hits or whatever, it seems like really that's all he did. Well, he was so much more impactful than that. I mean, even the fact that I know everybody saw the clip of him eating up 2 blockers so Osa Odigizua can just come in and finish up the sack. The talking about how he's threatening off the edge and causing false starts and then bad snaps and things like that. He's somebody who, makes a real difference outside of just what the box score is going to show. But we know Osa Odigizua had a great game. Dorrance Armstrong had a great game. Dante Fowler, I thought, had a really good game and didn't get enough discussion. DeMarcus Lawrence. Let's talk about outside of just what the defensive line did, though. Wanye Thomas, obviously, he was the first.
Well, can I circle back real quick, though, Bobby, on the defensive line? What happened, and this goes back to Dan Quinn, and I've said this on a few platforms, so I'll say it one more time, and then I'll try and remember that I've said it on a few platforms. Dan Quinn will make Micah Parsons to the level that Micah Parsons needs to be. And I'll tell you where. Dan Quinn knows that Micah Parsons is going to get doubled and triple teamed. He knows that offensive lines are going to set their protection to him. They are going to find number 11. They're going to slide it, chip it, help. They're going to do everything to try and do that. Dan Quinn, knowing this, what does he do? Dan Quinn figures out, I can't put somebody next to Micah Parsons that can't rush the passer. I am not going to waste a Micah Parsons snap with him inside without putting somebody to his outside that could probably rush the passer. So what does he do? He moves Micah inside and he puts Osa to the outside of him. So what happens? Giants sell out to block Micah. What does Osa do? Starts up and then comes behind the double team. As he sees the quarterback, as he sees Daniel Jones stepping forward in the pocket, what does Osa do? He loops around, makes the play. Dan Quinn is smart enough to know, okay, they're gonna send multiple people after Micah. Maybe I can get somebody home, but I got to get somebody home that can rush the pass. Now he's got a lot of options. But he put his best option, I think, right now next to Micah on that play when it came to Osa Odigizua to get him home. That's what Dan Quinn has to do. That's what Dan Quinn is going to have to do going forward because he knows if he could get Micah, Micah's going to command blocks, get other people home. Or Micah's going to get home and you're going to get a sack like we saw early in that game. But it's really good technique. But You mentioned focusing on the outside, the other guys like Wanye Thomas, and even throw in, our young guy there, Marquise Bell.
Yeah, Marquise Bell and Wanye Thomas, both really good performances. We'll talk about them here in just a second. A good time to remind you guys that you are listening to the Love of the Star podcast. The Love of the Star is an Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcasts. Brian, so Wanye Thomas, Marquise Bell, they stepped up in a big way. One of the things I want to focus on here, though, is first off, Stephon Gilmore was fantastic in this game and coverage.
Brilliant player.
He was great. And one of the things that stood out to me, though, was the physicality that Trayvon Diggs was playing with yesterday. The fact that he comes in and he lays the wood on Saquon Barkley and pops the ball in the air that Deron Bland picks off, goes in the end zone. And that felt like, I know we said it was essentially game over after the field goal. That felt like the Giants are not winning this game tonight.
No.
They got it was 16-0. It was like Giants have lost. That was the end. It felt too much for them. You had Diggs, of course, later on coming down, making the strip on the catch and run that Israel Mukuamu then scoops it up. But I thought it was really interesting the sort of physicality that Diggs played with. And he's flashed it at times, very, very seldomly. Like we always point to the Cincinnati game, that wrap-up tackle he made
twice
on third down. Yeah, two of them. But
third and fourth down.
Specifically on third, that was really big.
Yeah.
Do you think that we're seeing a new Trayvon Diggs, or was it just do you think he was in the moment along with this groundswell that the defense felt, and that was an outpouring of that, or is this a potential? We really do have a more physical version of Trayvon Diggs this season.
I want to believe it's a more physical, because look at what happened and he gave up probably the biggest play of the game, or the biggest play of the day, for the Giants, the ball that went to Hodgins, right? The one where he was able to, it was a big run, big catch, and he hammers it out of his hands. So that is a very, very aggressive play. If you're going to give up a big play, make sure you try and make a big play to kind of turn the tide there, and he did by creating the fumble. But if I could go back, if you remember the hit that he made, okay, the previous plays of that, the first down play, you get a sack from Lawrence.
Yep.
The second play on second down, 2nd and 19, you get an incomplete. Now it's 3rd and 19, and Daniel Jones is under pressure, and he's just trying to check it down, and he's just trying to live to fight for another day. So what does he do? He throws the ball. Just a great read by Diggs. But he took a lot of grief for what happened to him in that San Francisco playoff game when he missed just completely whiffed, with the ball with an opportunity. And then he had the drop. But the ball was through traffic, probably didn't see it cleanly like he needed to. But I think what you're starting to see from Diggs is that there was a time, and I really did believe this, Bobby, that the Giants were going to be a left-handed team, and they were going to try and run the ball at him. They were going to see who in the right side, because you run the ball at Tank, it's going to be problems, but you run the ball at that right defensive end for the Cowboys, whoever it might be, and then you force Diggs to have to play forward, but he took a lot of grief for the lack of physicality that he played with at times.
Yeah,
to the point where people are like tweeting at you like, "Hey, well look at that. Yeah, there he goes. There's a play. You guys talk about him. No, I mean, let's be honest here. We don't sit here and talk about these players, what they can and cannot do, unless we still like, well, hey, they, like Udoka, we didn't see, and we'll get into what kind of game Udoka had. I mean, I think there's some positive things.
Sure.
But there are things that we did not with Diggs where you had seen him not be as aggressive as he needed to be. And yesterday he did a great job. Again, big time play, 2 big time plays. Knocking the ball loose, and then on the Bland interception for a touchdown, pick 6, and then him hammering the ball out of Hodgins' hands after the catch. So maybe this is one of those things where it is a turning point for him with the physicality that he knows that he needs to play with.
Yeah, because I thought honestly yesterday all 3 of your starting corners played really, really well. Deron Bland, Trayvon Diggs, Stephon Gilmore. I thought they all were really impressive.
I thought Jalen Hyatt was going to be big vertical guy, the one target for the game. and it was a
By
drop.
The way, this is one of the
weird,
things that
weird game for him, man.
I felt like watching the game. I haven't gone back and watched the tape yet on it, but watching it live the first time and being, up in the press box and having kind of the full view of it. One of the things that stood out to me, and I'm curious if you saw the same one on tape, did it look like to you Daniel Jones was just flat out missing his pre-snap diagnosis of what the defense was doing? It looked like right after the snap, there were several times where he kind of started pinballing around like this. They're not where I thought they were. It looked like the Cowboys were doing a really good job of disguising their intentions, because Daniel Jones looked like post-snap, he was very confused on several different occasions.
Yeah, I think the weather really bothered him, but the Dallas front seven really bothered him a lot. And what actually the 11 on the field, because the secondary did a great job in coverage. I think there was various looks that Dan Quinn gave him, and he knew that his offensive line was compromised bad. It didn't matter. We talked about the potential, the problems at guard, the problems at center with the rookie there, the problems at the right tackle spot. All five guys, it did not matter. Daniel Jones, with the one thing, with all that pressure and the sacks that the Cowboys were able to create, Daniel Jones' eye level went from being downfield to looking at the rush. And once he started looking at the rush, he was done. Ball wasn't going to get out. Ball wasn't going to go down the field. He wasn't going to make a... I mean, you forced him into the interception that Gilmore had. I mean, she's just throwing the ball out of bounds. But here he is running to the sidelines. He tries to fit the ball back inside. Well, no chance. No chance there. Gilmore with a great interception, able to get both hands underneath the ball, cradle it to get the interception. Set the Cowboys up in a great spot.
There wasn't a person in the press
box. They
really,
rattled him yesterday.
No one realized Gilmore had picked it off in the press box until it was called. Like I watching it live, I hadn't even been sure, just because the angle it was at and Micah pushing him out. I hadn't been sure he had gotten the ball out.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you saw it. I thought there was a fight at the bottom of the pile, but no, it was just they were trying to scrap for the ball, and it was like, oh gosh, like Gilmore actually picked that off. So defense. Incredible night. You can't say enough good things about them. I'm going to say this about the offensive grade. Incomplete. Like, I have no idea. I don't think we got a chance to see the offense really at all. I mean, there were certain aspects of it you can certainly see. But in terms of what they want to do with this new passing attack and some of the concepts, it's just, it was basically 16-0 before they got a chance to do anything. And it was a wet field, and your offensive line was a little bit compromised. So I don't think we were going to get a great representation of what they want to do in the passing attack from this game. But in general, I think we can look at some individual performances. You already mentioned one guy, Chuma Edoga, and I thought Edoga was okay. There was specifically the big 25-yard run that Pollard had. Edoga pulled on that and did a nice job kind of sealing, and then you had good blocks from Schoonmaker, and I think it was Hendershot.
Yeah, it was.
Hendershot, by the way, he still has issues with drops. He had the drop in the end zone. That's something we've talked a lot about here on this show, is his issue with the drops. I got to say, he's impressed me on two different occasions yesterday. I think he impressed me with his blocking. So he's improved, I think, over the offseason. But in general, your thoughts on how Edoga played in place of Tyler Smith?
Well, let me circle back what I learned about the offense, Bobby, because is the weather definitely a factor. The way that the defense dominated for the Cowboys and special teams, big factor. Didn't have to do as much. I will say this. The most impressive thing that I saw from this offense was the drive to start the second half. 10 plays, 75 yards. The way that the mix, they started off with the pass to Michael Gallup. They get some runs. They kind of mix and match away. They went with they finish off the drive with a touchdown. They needed that. The offense needed something like that. And I know on 105.3 The Fan on the halftime show, with Zach Wolchek and myself, I challenged the offense. I said, listen, you got to lead, but you get the ball to start the second half. You need to find a way to go get 7 points out of this. Because they really hadn't done very much all night. But there were some creative things. The 49-yard pass out of the trips formation with the 2 picks and the wheel behind it. That's all we're asking. Create separation for Dak Prescott. The 4th down pass to Cooks. with the off coverage and him to run the inside route, and they get protection, and Dak throws the ball right where it needs to be thrown. The unbalanced line on the goal line, and they hand the ball or toss the ball to Pollard, and he's able to kind of get in off that. There was some creativity, but that second half drive that started the second half, that first drive of the second half, that's what I needed to see, because that's what this team is capable of. Going 75 yards, mixing up the play calls, but also finding a way to kill almost 6 minutes off that clock and finish with points. So other than that, it was a very, in a way, kind of a night where you're like, okay, that was good. That was good. But to get back to Udoka and where he played, and I was super, super, super critical of him because I did not see him when he played offensive tackle. Let's be honest, he was awful. But this defense had a way of making everybody look awful. I'm not making excuses for him, but here he is. He doesn't look good at tackle. We didn't see him play any guard. I didn't see him play any guard. I know,
So I'm taking a handful of practice reps where he looked a little better. But
I don't remember any of them, Bobby. I'm sorry if
That's fine. Yeah.
I don't remember any of them. But
I remember seeing him at guard. He looked a little better, but not as good as I thought he was last night.
See, but that's what I'm saying. The way that the Giants played, it's perfect for how he is. Because Udoka, to me, is kind of a small area player, even though he pulls and, he had some opportunities to, he had some blocks where he was okay again. And he was good enough. He was not a liability. Him as a tackle in practice was a liability. But last night, no. What are they going to do? They're going to bull rush him. They're going to try and just run over him. They're not going to have a lot of moves, a lot of quickness, a lot of that. And that plays right into his hands. He did a nice job. Tyron Smith did a really nice job over on that left-hand side. The one blemish was only really that Biotish got pushed a little bit by Lawrence. I thought he had the most trouble on the offensive line last night. The screenplay for him to cover the fumble though that helps a lot.
Dowdle's 10-yard run, the first carry he got of the game, he moved Lawrence that was the one time I remember him getting movement on.
No, absolutely. There was some struggle there. There's clearly some struggle there. But I overall, though, I like what I saw from Steele and Martin. And you mentioned the 25-yard run that Pollard had. Yeah, that was Hendershot. That was Schoonmaker. That's what you got to have. The tight ends did a great job at the point of attack. The tackles, the guard, everybody hats on hats. But Udoka as a whole, I'm not going to sit there and apologize for him because, like I say, I don't know anybody that had any real confidence. Now, they had confidence.
Wasn't great. He was
good. He was good enough, and he wasn't a liability. And that's all you can ask. That's all you can ask right now.
Yeah, it's funny that I think that when you talk about somebody who has to step in, spot start, and was good enough, and a short area player, things like that. It sounds a little bit to me like you're describing a guy that had to step in, play with some power, was needed to play in tighter areas. It sounds a little bit like what they got out of Xavier Su'a-Filo a couple years ago. You remember when he had to step in and play?
Yeah.
If he can be that, if he can be what Su'a-Filo did, which nobody thought Su'a-Filo was like, oh, this is a permanent starter, but it's like, okay, you can get by if he has to play guard for a little bit. That's how I felt about Udoka in this game. It's interesting. You mentioned the fourth down catch from Brandon Cooks. That was 2 catches, 22 yards for Cooks. Not a dominant offensive day in general for the offensive unit. But I thought that, again, the box score doesn't tell the whole story with Cooks, who I thought that big fourth down catch and knowing he was going to get hit. And
the pass interference, drawing the pass interference.
He olayed that one. That was a nice little soccer cell job. I felt like I didn't think that was nearly the contact that he made it out to be. A savvy move there. He gets the illegal contact on a third down throw that misses to CeeDee Lamb, extends the drive a little bit longer. But what I thought was interesting there was the throw on fourth down, the pass interference on third down. The game was still sort of in the balance at that point when those throws are made. I thought it was interesting that on big moments right there, Dak was looking for Brandon Cooks.
Brandon Cooks, you watch him run routes. He's smooth. He is so in and out of breaks, the cuts that he's able to make, outstanding when it comes to, and really the routes run all at the same speed. He's not a start out fast, slow down to have to stop. No, his routes have got a lot of shape to them, and they've got a lot of speed and a lot of quickness to them.
Yeah, he was somebody who I found it very interesting that, I mean, Dak obviously has a lot of trust for CeeDee Lamb. Michael Gallup really, again, you want to talk about what I think may have been a concerted effort. Did you think, Brian, there was a concerted effort on that opening drive in the second half of let's get Gallup into a rhythm? Let's look for Michael first.
Yeah, and he's worked so hard, and you don't want him to become the forgotten guy, but they're going to need Michael Gallup. Again, what does Michael Gallup do? He makes a catch, and you're thinking he's got no chance to keep his body in, but what does he do? He goes and catches the ball and tries to get, but the catch, the 10-yard catch to start or the 11-yard catch to start the second half was a big play for him. It was nice to see him get the catch, and you got to find a way.
I think that was very intentional, though. I think that was let's try and get Michael into a rhythm. Yeah. And they looked for him there. But I do think it's interesting that earlier in the game, but when big throws when those were still meaningful throws on 3rd and 4th down, Dak looked for Brandon Cooks. That's the direction.
And he should. Brandon Cooks is going to make plays.
Yeah,
he's going to win on the routes. He's going to win routes on the outside.
Talked about Brandon Cooks as the speed threat and the vertical threat, but I mean, we do need to continue to talk about it. He's a really good route runner. He's somebody who can still make these tough catches over the middle. He's not a giant receiver, but you saw it. He'll make the catch and he'll stand in there and he'll take the hit and he'll finish it. Right. I mean, he's a good receiver, has been a good receiver for a decade now because of those aspects. Now, obviously, not a lot we can take from Dak Prescott's performance. I don't feel like, again, it's kind of an incomplete grade. He had a couple misses that I felt, especially in the first half, were more about rhythm of the offense and trying to figure things out more than the weather in the first half. Second half was more about weather. But also he had at least 4 drops. Brian, was it 5? Because I know Turpin had 1. You got 2 from Ferguson and 1 from Hendershot. Was there another one in there that I'm forgetting? There were at least 4 drops.
Yeah, I was trying to think of all the drops. The one Ferguson had 1, Hendershot had 1.
Ferguson had 2.
Yeah,
he had 1 in the red zone, and then Turpin had 1 in the red zone.
Yeah.
And so you had some drops issues there. Before we go to the mailbag, I'm just curious, Brian, that the other aspect here, because I think everything else we've got a pretty good handle on. How did Tyron Smith look to you playing tackle? And specifically, I want to say this, is that can we make a fair evaluation of anything done in pass protection when so far we're recording this Monday night. We still got to see the Bills and the Jets play. But so far through all but one game, Dak Prescott was number 1 in the league in time to throw. He was getting the ball out faster than anybody else. He was getting it out in, I believe it was 2.37 seconds or something like that. So it was quick throws. You weren't having to block for very long. But with that context behind it, how do you think Tyron Smith looked at left tackle?
I think Tyron Smith was fine. I think he was fine. I mean, again, to me, where Tyron Smith, he's not as I think injuries have robbed him of some of his athletic ability, but you saw some of the pulls on him getting outside. That's when he's outside running, it's, defensive backs back up, and he's going to create a lot of
strong,
still very strong, but he probably doesn't have the lateral agility that he once had or the lateral quickness that he once had. But man, he's still one of those guys that if he gets his hands on you, he could finish you. And you look at last night with Thibodeau and those guys, there was nothing. There was nothing coming from that side over there. Not that Dallas, ran a whole ton of plays, but the plays that they had to run, the plays that they threw the ball, I think that Tyron Smith, when you watched him block, it was not to the level it was, 4 or 5 years ago, but it's got to feel good for him to have that kind of a good start against, with Ojulari and then Thibodeau and those guys with their ability to rush.
Last one before we get to the mailbag on the Tyron Smith front again. What did you think about we already talked about that opening drive in the second half. What did you think about that jumbo right side where they went
unbalanced,
Steele, Smith,
unbalanced,
there.
unbalanced line, and what happens is unbalanced. You bring the tight end down next to the guard on the left side, but a creative wrinkle, just something on the goal line that if they don't adjust to it, if the Giants don't adjust, then you've got an advantage of a 312-pound, 315-pound extra tackle over there, extra blocker over there. And what they do, they toss the ball, and it just was kind of a walk-in touchdown. With all that,
honestly, the unbalanced line, I think, worked exactly what it was, because when you watched the playback, I didn't think it was like blocked up super well. Like they just kind of got in the way of the defenders. Pollard was patient and bounces, but it's not like they just mauled them. It was just you had three big guys there. It was tough to break through. You are listening to the Love the Star podcast. The Love of the Star is an Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, it is now time for our Dean Julia Love of the Star mailbag. A lot of people feeling really excited in the wake of this first victory for the Cowboys. Let's go with this first question from Levi. He says, if the Cowboys beat the Jets and start 2-0, will it change your predictions for their final record this year? 2-0 would mean they only need to go 10-5 the rest of the way to match their records in 21 and 22. I think 13-4, 14-3 both become realistic with a win Sunday. I don't know about you, Brian. When we said 11 wins, I think we both came out with 11. I thought they'd win the first two games of the year. Like I didn't think they'd be in dominant fashion, but I thought they'd win. So I don't know. I guess the way they win could maybe change my mind a little bit if they show certain things. But man, we'll see tonight again with this Bills game. But if this Jets offensive line is as bad as the discussion about it has been, and Hard Knocks has covered and stuff like that, man, they might have just as much trouble blocking that front that Dallas has next week as the Giants did.
Yeah, but then the Giants, the Jets will do is they'll commit to running the football. They will commit to, they're not going to sit there. What's the one thing that last year, how did the Packers with Aaron Rodgers beat the Cowboys? They committed to running the football. What they didn't let the Cowboys tee off on them.
Well, and then it helped when Kelvin Joseph had to come in and you could just throw it on him.
I just feel like that. I don't feel like this game is going to be and none of the games this year I don't think will be as easy as the game was against the Giants. I don't see that. I think this is going to be a very hard fought game. Aaron Rodgers has a great history of playing very well in that stadium. We'll see tonight if what happens with the line, like you mentioned. But I do not predict any NFL team, Bobby, just saying, okay, we're going to beat the Dallas Cowboys throwing the football. I think teams are going to be really committed to running the football. And they'll say, let's make it slow and ugly, but let's not let this pass rush. They are going to try and wear the Cowboys down, their defensive line down. And if you wear them down, then the pass rush is not as effective. Does it change? I know that we've just kind of talked about, does it change your thoughts about things? I don't think so. But I do know that teams aren't going to let the Dallas Cowboys just sick them as a pass rush. I just know that.
We had several people ask us. I know Sean Cunningham was one. I had a couple others in there on Twitter. We had several people ask us, what happens when Donovan Wilson is back healthy? How does that change the rotation? So we know
He plays.
Yeah,
Donovan Wilson plays. Hey, you know what? Then all of a sudden, then you find a way to incorporate. You find a way to incorporate.
Bell
with Wanye Thomas. Yeah, that's
Bell is taking the overshown role. So Bell is spoken for. Thomas is the one who is getting an increase in snaps because Wilson is out. If you wanted more snaps for Wanye Thomas, who that will probably come at the expense of actually is, and I don't think it necessarily will, but if they wanted to find him, it'd probably come at the expense more of Damone Clark than I would think any of the safeties.
Yep.
Because they believe in Curse, Hooker, and Wilson. Those are their guys. And Wilson specifically, we asked Dan Quinn out in Oxnard, like, hey, when you talk about toughness, and that's one of the things that's really important, physicality to your defense, who are the guys you point to on here to new players and say, hey, follow this guy's lead? And the first guy he said was back seven. If you're a back, if you're a back seven player, I'm pointing to Donovan Wilson.
Donovan Wilson. Yep.
And I'm saying you need to play like that guy plays.
Yep.
And on the defensive line, he said it was Jonathan Hankins. And so that's
Hankins looked really good on tape too, Bobby. Hankins moved really well in this game.
Hankins doesn't. We've complained before about guys like Bohanna and Gallimore and some of these bigger guys.
No, this guy moves. Yeah,
Hankins does not get moved.
Nope.
He has been such a big acquisition.
And he moves.
Yeah, he was. I think he was in the pursuit. He didn't get there. I think he was in the pursuit along with Micah on that throw that Gilmore picked off. So
yeah.
He's flashed some pass rush ability, no doubt about it. But next question here from Stevie J. It says, while he seems to be blocking well, Peyton Hendershot dropped another ball. We mentioned that earlier, this one in the end zone. Could we see Schoonmaker take some of his snaps as soon as week 2 versus the Jets? Or is Hendershot's leash longer than that?
Longer.
You think so?
Yep.
Even if John Stevens doesn't get hurt, what are they doing at tight end?
I think it's close if they keep Hunter Lipke. That's where I think that, or somebody else would have. I do think they like Hendershot.
Sure.
But you're
He's
right.
Gonna start catching passes.
Yeah, if he starts catching if he continues to drop the ball, and trust me, I'm the biggest Schoonmaker fan here. I think Michigan's offense held Schoonmaker back.
Yeah, I think Schoonmaker can be really dynamic.
I think he can too.
And I mean, it's something where there's going to reach a point where, you know what, they're not even going to have to take him off the field. I'll tell you what will happen is that quarterback's going to stop trusting Hendershot.
Yep, absolutely.
So the quarterback's just not going to go. The quarterback's not going to look for him, because I know that's been frustrating in these practices during the offseason as well, is that he's not consistently catching the ball there either. And Hendershot, I like his athletic ability. He's improved as a blocker. These are all things that you can really like. But if you're not going to catch the ball at the end of the day, like,
they're not going to play
your athleticism. So next question here from Fernando Beltran. How much of the offensive struggles is on the weather and rust? I feel like Dak threw it well and accurate, but just a lot of drops. Dak could have been better. I don't think Dak was super sharp.
No, absolutely could have been better. And
Dak was not
the offense as a whole. The offense as a whole could be better. I think the weather was a factor on offense for both teams. Like I said earlier, though, I think the Cowboys' defense was more of a factor for the Giants' offense. But, yeah, there's things that – did Dak miss some throws? I think there were a couple of them that he'd probably like to have back. But we mentioned 3-4 drops from what we saw. The offense didn't need to be great. The thing I'm going to focus on when I look at this offense is what they did in that drive to start the second half. That's where I said, if they don't have that drive, say they go 3 and out, then I'm blasting this offense. I'm saying, hey, they have to be better. Offensively, you have to be better. I think McCarthy got in a little rhythm calling plays, especially that second half. The lead with the way it was, I mean, the offense, the first couple of series of the game, the offense wasn't even out there. And then next thing you know, it's like, 6-0, 9-0, something like that, I mean, by the time they kind of got things going, the defense had already kind of established what they were doing.
Yeah, I mean, you had it was one series in the entire first quarter.
Yeah.
And that one series was over pretty quickly, and you were still up 16-0. And so it's hard to judge exactly what the offense was going to be. I do think there is some rust and a new system, and it's a wet field, and it's all timing based. They were going to be a little off. That was something that needed to be expected.
You probably cannot be off this next week.
No, but the first game, I think you can expect there were going to be little. You're going to work out some timing things. It's the first time game speed reps running it.
Right.
I can get it.
Right.
All right, last question here from Thomas Davis. Thomas says the Cowboys pass rush looked elite. What percentage of that was based on the defense, and what percentage was based on the Giants O-line? How can they build off of that performance? So this is it's a little bit of chicken and the egg, Ryan, or in my case, how much of it is that the Longhorns are back and Texas is back versus Nick Saban and Bama are cracking, or is it a little bit of both? And just like Bama and Texas, which, man, the Giants, they sure looked like Bama at times with a false start followed by a bad snap. That looked exactly like Bama on Saturday night. And so, Brian, when you look at the the offensive line for the Giants and what the Cowboys did with the pass rush, I would say, let's say 60-40. 60% is about the Cowboys, 40% is about that. Giants offensive line definitely has some problems right now.
I think it's more like 80-20. I think the Cowboys are that good on that front. I think the pass rush is that good. Giants have some problems. We talked about them. 2-3 guys. They got some problems up front. But I think the Cowboys pass rush put them in a bunch of bad spots. I think there's that's a line that they're trying to work on. They're trying to get it better. But everybody that took a swing at running or on a rush did a great job. And Will McClay told me this a while back when I asked him. We talked about Isaiah Land. I said, man, it's a shame you lost Isaiah Land. And Will McClay told me, he goes, we got pass rushers. We'll be fine. We got pass rushers. He knew. I think I'm going to go 80-20. Dallas defensive line, pass rush, 20%. The Giants just completely fell apart.
It'll be really interesting to see how they build on.
I think the Cowboys made them fall apart. That's what I'm really trying to say.
I mean, they like we said, Parsons, the ability to threaten and cause guys to jump outside.
Dan Quinn made him fall apart too.
Yeah, Quinn going up against a guy in Wink Martindale who is notorious for you never know who's coming on the blitz. You can't identify it. That was one of the ways that when we talked about earlier that Daniel Jones was confused. There were several times where I don't think Daniel Jones knew who was coming and who wasn't.
Nope.
And that's a great job by Dan Quinn to disguise that. All right, that does it for us here on the Love the Star podcast. We will be back again with you guys with 2 more episodes this week. Remember, we are in season schedule. That means 3 episodes a week that we're throwing at you. So we'll be back hopefully with some updates on Tyler Smith. We're going to be talking Tuesday morning with Jerry Jones on 105.3 The Fan. Hopefully have some good insight from him. But looking forward to the Jets and figuring out maybe some of this injury situation with Tyler Smith, Donovan Wilson, how close those guys are to come back. For Brian Broaddus, I am Bobby Belt. We will talk to you guys again next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.